The year is 1692. A small village in Massachusetts, Salem, becomes consumed by fear. Darkness descends as accusations of witchcraft tear the community apart. Neighbors turn on neighbors, friends on friends. The Salem witch trials stand as a chilling reminder of the dangers of unchecked fear and the enduring power of human cruelty. Imagine a time when superstition reigned supreme. In a world shrouded in religious fervor and fear of the unknown, the seeds of suspicion easily took root. The harsh realities of life in the late 17th century, disease, hardship, and social tensions, created a breeding ground for paranoia and mistrust. It began with a group of young girls exhibiting strange behaviors. These girls, who were otherwise known for their innocence and playfulness, suddenly started acting in ways that were completely out of character. They would scream, contort their bodies into unnatural positions, and have violent fits that left them exhausted and terrified. Fits, contortions, and outbursts gripped them, baffling the community. The villagers, who had never seen anything like this before, were at a loss. They tried to find rational explanations, but none seemed to fit. The girls' behaviors were so extreme and so sudden that it left everyone in a state of panic and confusion. Desperate for explanations, the villagers sought answers in the supernatural. They held meetings and consulted with each other, trying to make sense of the chaos. The fear of the unknown led them to believe that something otherworldly was at play. Whispers of witchcraft began to circulate, and the community's fear grew. Fingers pointed to Tituba, a slave, and Sarah Good and Sarah Osborne, two ostracized women, as the cause of the girls' afflictions. These women were already marginalized in society, making them easy targets for the villagers' suspicions. Tituba, with her different cultural background, and Sarah Good and Sarah Osborne, who were already outcasts, became the focal points of the community's fear and anger. Accusations, once whispered, escalated into a torrent. The initial suspicions quickly turned into full-blown accusations. The villagers, driven by fear and hysteria, began to accuse more and more people of witchcraft. The atmosphere in the village became charged with paranoia and distrust. Fueled by fear and religious extremism, the witch hunt spiraled out of control. The villagers' fear was compounded by their religious beliefs, which saw witchcraft as a direct threat to their way of life. The combination of fear, superstition, and religious fervor created a perfect storm that led to the witch hunt spiraling out of control. As the trials commenced, the accused faced relentless questioning, physical examinations for witches' marks, and intense pressure to confess. The trials were brutal and unforgiving. The accused were subjected to intense scrutiny and were often forced to undergo humiliating physical examinations to find so-called witches' marks. The pressure to confess was immense, and many of the accused found themselves trapped in a nightmare from which there was no escape. The court, presided over by local magistrates, lacked proper legal procedures, and spectral evidence, testimony based on dreams and visions, was accepted as proof of guilt. The legal system at the time was ill-equipped to handle such cases. The use of spectral evidence, which was based on dreams and visions rather than concrete proof, meant that many innocent people were condemned. The trials were a tragic miscarriage of justice, driven by fear and superstition. The Salem witch trials did not erupt in a vacuum. Deep-seated societal anxieties and simmering tensions within the community contributed to the hysteria. Religious fanaticism, a potent force in Puritan New England, played a significant role. The Puritans believed in the constant presence of the devil and the threat of witchcraft. This fear, coupled with a rigid social hierarchy, created a climate ripe for accusations. Personal vendettas and long-held grudges also fueled the fire. Accusations served as a weapon to settle scores and eliminate rivals. Property disputes, social conflicts, and personal jealousies intertwined with the accusations, transforming the trials into a tool for revenge and power grabs. Section 4. The Iron Grip of Faith, Religion, and Authority in Salem. The Puritan worldview, with its emphasis on sin, damnation, and the constant battle against evil, provided the ideological framework for the witch hunt. This worldview was deeply ingrained in the daily lives of the people of Salem, influencing their thoughts, actions, and fears. The Puritans believed that they were in a constant struggle against the forces of darkness. and this belief made them particularly susceptible to the idea that witches were living among them, working to undermine their community. Ministers, revered figures in Puritan society, played a crucial role in shaping public opinion and influencing the course of the trials. Their sermons and public statements could sway the beliefs of the entire community. In a society where religious leaders were seen as the ultimate moral authority, their words carried immense weight. The ministers' interpretations of scripture and their warnings about the dangers of witchcraft created an atmosphere of fear and suspicion. Reverend Samuel Parris, the minister of Salem village, fueled the flames of hysteria with his fiery sermons and unwavering belief in the presence of witchcraft. Parris's influence was significant. His passionate speeches about the devil's work in Salem convinced many that the threat was real and immediate. His position allowed him to shape the narrative, turning neighbor against neighbor and deepening the community's paranoia. The trials also exposed the dangers of unchecked authority. In the fervor to root out witchcraft, the judicial system abandoned its principles of fairness and justice. The courts, driven by a mix of religious fervor and a desire to maintain social order, often acted with little regard for evidence or due process. This led to a series of tragic miscarriages of justice where the innocent were punished and the guilty were often determined by mere suspicion. Magistrates, driven by a combination of religious zeal and a desire to maintain order, often ignored due process and accepted flimsy evidence. They were more concerned with quelling the perceived threat than with ensuring that justice was served. This led to a climate where accusations were enough to condemn someone, and the normal safeguards of the legal system were disregarded. The magistrates' actions reflected the broader societal panic and the dangerous consequences of allowing fear to override reason. The accused, presumed guilty until proven innocent, had few legal protections and faced immense pressure to confess, even falsely. The harsh conditions of imprisonment and the threat of execution forced many to admit to crimes they did not commit. The trials were a stark reminder of the perils of a system where authority is unchecked and the rights of individuals are not protected. The legacy of the Salem witch trials serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of hysteria and the importance of due process in the pursuit of justice. Section 5. Innocent lives shattered, stories of the accused. Amidst the chaos and fear, the human cost of the Salem witch trials remains the most tragic aspect of this dark chapter in history. The trials, fueled by hysteria and paranoia, led to the persecution of many innocent people. The atmosphere in Salem was one of suspicion and dread, where neighbor turned against neighbor, and no one was safe from the shadow of accusation. Individuals from all walks of life, men, women, and even children, found themselves ensnared in the web of accusations. The accused were often people who stood out in some way, whether through their behavior, their social status, or simply because they were different. The fear of witchcraft was so pervasive that even the most trivial of actions could be seen as evidence of dark dealings. Rebecca Nurse, a respected elderly woman known for her piety, became a target. Despite her reputation as a devout Christian and a pillar of the community, she was not spared from the hysteria. Her trial was a spectacle, with accusers presenting dubious evidence and the court accepting it without question. Her conviction shocked many, as it showed that no one, not even the most virtuous, was safe. Falsely accused and subjected to a sham trial, she was convicted and hanged on July 19, 1692. Her execution was a grim reminder of the consequences of mass hysteria and the dangers of a legal system that prioritizes fear over justice. The loss of Rebecca Nurse was deeply felt by those who knew her, and her story remains a poignant example of the trial's tragic impact. Giles Corey, an elderly farmer, refused to enter a plea in court, aware that a guilty verdict would result in the forfeiture of his property to the state. His refusal was an act of defiance, a way to protect his family's inheritance. Corey understood the stakes and chose to resist, even though it meant facing severe consequences. To force a confession, he was subjected to a horrific form of torture known as pressing, where heavy stones were piled on his chest until he suffocated. This brutal method was intended to break his spirit and force him to submit, but Corey remained resolute. His final words, "More weight," have become a testament to his unyielding spirit and his refusal to be complicit in the injustice. Corey's defiance, even in the face of unimaginable pain, became a symbol of the trial's brutality. His story, like that of Rebecca Nurse, highlights the extreme measures taken during the Salem witch trials and the resilience of those who stood against the tide of madness. These stories serve as a stark reminder of the human cost of fear and the importance of justice and reason in the face of hysteria.